We have never seen a time like this before. The roaring 20s again? Not quite. Financial crisis? Not really. Dot-com boom? Well, something like that. But it seems to be its own monster. This time around, people are in the worst condition they have ever been in, and what's most crazy is that many don't even realize it. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, I have about 30 tabs open. I've got information to share with you that's going to explain what's happening today. We're going to look at real estate. We're going to look at the economy. I've got several economic indicators to show you. I want to show you what's also happening with the potential for further inflation. Let's get into it right away. The recession is largely over for the rich, I would argue that. The working class remain in deep pain. Stocks are near record highs, home values are at all-time highs, jobs are back for the affluent. Meanwhile, jobs less than half recovered from low-wage workers, and the $600 has expired. There's an article there if you want to check it out. I'll show you one in just a second as well. But there is a chart at the bottom here where it explains all of that. So if you're in the top groups, you're doing fine. If you're in the bottom, not so much. And they are really relying on the government support, the government stimulus. Don't worry, because the Congress has gone on vacation. They need to go to the Hamptons too. I don't want you to feel any sort of judgment against them because their properties in the Hamptons are vacant. They were vacant up until this point. So there needs to be people in there. You have all of these servants that are waiting on them. And if they have to be at work, these people are just sitting around doing nothing, getting paid. Come on, be nice. All right, that's enough for the sarcasm if I can help it. Some economists have started to call this a K-shaped recovery. Okay, we got another letter of the alphabet being used. And basically what they're saying here is that this is the divergence in between the rich and the poor. So people, of course, if they are wealthy, they're doing fine. If they are not, well, you know how it goes. There's more detail in here if you want to check it out. Links will be in the description of the video. Apartmentlist.com has this survey. As I always say, any survey is only going to show us a limited amount of information, but we've been piecing these together and the message is always the same. In this case here, 32% of Americans entered August with unpaid housing bills. That, of course, could be messed up right now, the data, because of what's been happening with the eviction moratoriums, the forbearance plans, different protections that have been put in place today. People haven't been paying their bills for different reasons, but so many do not have the income to pay their bills. Let's just say it how it is. What does that say about what's coming? What's coming in the next few weeks, in the next few months? This isn't understood by the masses, not being talked about by the mainstream media, and much of the alternative media over the last few years has unfortunately given up on telling the truth. Here, the views have gone down, subscribers have flattened out. That is not important. What's important is the truth, and that's the end of it. So I did a post about this on the blog section of my channel, and I was joking around, but ultimately it's very serious. If you look at the picture at the bottom here, this is a food bank lineup in Texas. And as you can see, this is the V-shaped recovery. You have to look at it from a top down, like a bird's eye view, and that would be the V-shaped recovery they're talking about, right? No, of course not. This just shows you how bad things are getting, how bad they will become as soon as there is this lack of stimulus, as soon as there isn't money flowing in for these people, they're lining up to get food. I know, I saw the comments, they're saying, hey, they've got a car, they've probably got a cell phone, these are things that they don't need, things that they could be selling, they're spending money on. I get it. I'm not here to judge these people. I don't know what their personal situation is. My assumption here is that they're able to afford it when they had their 9-to-5 job. Maybe they were living paycheck to paycheck, but as long as that paycheck was coming in, they could afford the car, they could afford the cell phone, and so on. As soon as that stops, you have a problem. I warned about this for a long time, not because I have a crystal ball, but it's pretty obvious. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, millions and millions and millions of people do, even when they're making six figures. I have shown you the documentation on that before. As soon as the paycheck goes away, suddenly you've got a big issue. So if you want to see more pictures of this, you can actually go into the description of the video, check out the link here. There are several pictures coming from different sources. This is some information talking about Ford, and they're trying to become more profitable. I believe it's Ford Europe specifically. And I just wanted to note something here. Cost reduction, reducing greater than 10,000 positions across Europe and consolidated UK offices. That's another 10,000 positions at least that are going away in this industry that looks to be heading further and further down. It is very clear what we are seeing right now in the auto industry. It's not looking good, but you see the stocks and sometimes they get boosted up. Why? Oh, maybe there'll be stimulus, maybe there'll be a bailout, but it's ridiculous. We know where the trend is. This comes directly from the IATA, and you can see what their projections are for the airlines, talking about how many jobs will be affected in Europe. The analysis of the largest European markets shows a decline across all metrics since the previous IATA estimates in mid-June. In the left-hand column, it's showing you the different country. You're seeing the UK, Spain, Germany, Italy, and France. And it breaks it down here in the following columns. There are millions of people's jobs that are at risk today for one reason or another. This is not good, of course. We know what can happen in such a short period of time, and there can be no bailout to fix it. There are two reasons why I'm bringing this one up. American Airlines prepares to drop some service to smaller cities as expiration of federal aid nears. So you can take it for what it is as it's written here, but I thought it was interesting because number one, smaller cities, if they're not going to make the revenue on that as a business, they would start cutting from there. But it kind of makes me think of the Hunger Games, how you have these big mega cities and there basically is no infrastructure in between the two cities. So how does this work? There is one system that will bring you from one to the other. Maybe they are not going to have anything along the way, these little satellite cities that used to exist. If the infrastructure is going away, it becomes harder and harder to live there. So people start moving to the mega cities. Now the trend is short term right now. People are moving into more rural areas, but that could certainly change. It all depends on what's happening over a longer period of time. People are worried, they're scared, so they move out. That's such a small percentage of people, and I'll show you more about that in just a second. US bankruptcies at 10-year high, and you can see what's been happening looking at 2010 all the way to 2020. And I do believe that the second half of the year is going to look a lot worse than the first half. We haven't felt anything yet. Even 2021 might be even worse. We are going to see the data as it piles up. I just wanted to bring it to you. It's getting worse with a lot of different corporations that are now starting to liquidate some of that inventory because they're allowed to open up their stores, and we're going to see one after another after another. I don't want to get deep into this article whatsoever, but this is a very important topic. And if you want to know more about it, of course, you can read it here. And I knew I'm going to struggle on something like this, but anyway. Are bread riots coming to America? This is a difficult topic for many reasons, but you can see what happens historically. We have noted this many times in history. When people are pushed to the edge, my goodness, they lose it. You could see that this has happened even in modern history. Look at how many countries deal with this strife, deal with the problems within their own country, in their own cities. There are revolts, there are so many things that happen, and ultimately the people lose out. The middle class evaporates, most people move to the bottom, and there's a few at the top. I thought this was hilarious. Americans keep buying stuff despite what's happening. Retail sales rise for a third straight month. I want to bring you the news regardless of what's going on. Regardless if it's quote unquote positive or negative, I'm simply showing you what I find. Right now, that's 3 months in a row where retail sales have risen. Home prices climbed to a record as buyers seek space. Prices for cheaper homes grew faster than the rest of the market. So this has been happening right now. You could see it many places around, and there's another article connected in with that. This one here, Real Estate Network reports booming second home markets. And that's been happening over the last few months. The markets that they mentioned here, Lake Tahoe, Aspen, Cape Cod, Hamptons, and Miami. I've noticed a lot of places where you have your major cities and they're going off into the cottage country. They're going off into the east. They're trying to make this time where they can get away from it all. And so that's happening. I'm sure the same thing is going on where you live. People are basically trying to spread out. The font is really small here, but I'm just going to read this quickly. It's a CNBC article that was talking about what is going on in the situation right now. Is there a recession? Is there not a recession? But this individual had something interesting to say. The real recession is still out there. In fact, the real recession may be yet to come. It's not a recession yet, and by that I mean the concept of recession as opposed to the definition. We've seen 2 negative quarters, but the real recession has yet to emerge. That will come, he said, when the long-term repercussions of the current situation are felt. Talking about the service economy, how so many businesses have closed down. And then here, what will create the recession going forward is the recognition that after everything reopens, life is not the same, and there are strong shifts in demand that are going to appear relatively permanent. It's going to have an impact on finance, going to have an impact on hiring, and he goes on. So I think it's just interesting to see. This is kind of the information that I've been bringing to you. There's so many changes that are happening today, and of course that has an impact on many different industries. Empty apartments in Manhattan reach record high, topping 13,000. So this is one that's been an issue. I've been bringing it to you, of course. Manhattan, New York, struggling because of the high prices, because of the high taxation, so many different reasons. This cannot be sustained over the long term if you have a lot of people, especially wealthy people that are moving out. That's a lot less taxation. The revenues of the city start to go down. And what they love to do most is to raise taxes. They love raising taxes. They'll tell you it's only for a small group of people, but everybody gets hit. Yet another company to add to the list, the clothing rental startup Rent the Runway is closing all of its stores for good. Didn't have many stores anyway, but it's just one after the other after the other. I thought I would bring it to you. I'm not aware of this store, but there might be some people out there who recognize the name. Betting against the dollar is more popular than ever, according to Bank of America. We've seen the US dollar index, which of course is measured not against something solid, but against other currencies. When you look at this, of course it's skewed. But regardless, we are watching the dollar as it is falling in relation to those other currencies. And as a result, more and more people have been piling into the trend. And this is the way it works. They're following this momentum. It wouldn't surprise me to see if it bounced up at some point, but look at what happened in the last recession. The Canadian dollar was 114, I believe, at its peak to the US dollar. Let's say a year prior to that happening, 2 years prior to that happening, if I would have told you the Canadian dollar would have been 114 to the US dollar, you would have told me impossible. I would bet all of my life savings on that not being the case. But it happened. So we'll see what happens this time around. This is interesting. I found this chart, wanted to bring it to you. China credit impulse versus the 10-year real rates 12-month lag. Isn't it interesting that the amount of money that China pumps into their system has a 1-year lag on the inflation that the US tends to see? So could there be more inflation coming because China is pumping a lot of money into their system? Historically, this chart goes back to 2009, and they are very accurate. Again, there's that lag there. So over the next 12 months, could there be more inflation? Well, certainly the Federal Reserve has set it up like that. You want to talk about what's going on right now in the United States? Well, check this out. China versus America. You could see the yellow line. That's China. How many Fortune 500 companies? And you look at USA Fortune 500 companies. China now has more. There's something very strange going on today, but certainly this chart is very telling. And you look at how much the US and China are spending on defense, this tells you something and paints an interesting picture. So today, as it stands, the US is in fact spending more. But over the next decade or two, China will surpass the US by far. They will spend anything. They will do whatever it takes. Now, this, of course, is a projection. We don't know. But we know how these two sides have been battling it out recently. So the amount, if you look at it as a percentage of the GDP, not necessarily in dollar terms or anything else, I think it is really going to escalate. And we will see that happening very quickly. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. When you do, you're supporting me. Thank you very much. If you want to talk even faster, hit that thumbs up button twice, 3 times, maybe even 4 times. It's all good. If you want to learn how to sell stuff online, you can do so by paying $1,000, $2,000 even, some great courses out there. If you are interested in paying $0, well, I have a free e-course, the AmazonGPS.com. If you want to learn about the financial system, you could ask your teacher in school. They know everything about it. Or if you want to read 2 books and get actual knowledge, well then, check it out. Link in description. If you want the audiobook, themoneygps.com. Wait a second, don't go anywhere. Have you seen this video? It is very important. A lot of detail in it. Check it out. I'll see you there.